Should be about the world's shortest public hearing.
We have to read all these meets and bounds?
Do you want me to test?
No, you're on.
We're on, okay. So we are live, and it is now 1 o'clock. So I'm going to call this June 29th special called meeting of the Oak Ridge Town Council to order. A warm welcome to everyone here in the chambers and anyone watching on our live stream. We're glad you're here. We'll move on to approval of our agenda. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, let's proceed to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries and the agenda is approved. We move on to our third and main item, a public hearing regarding petitions for voluntary annexation and consideration of Ordinance 02021-12 to extend the town's corporate limits. And I'm going to turn it over to our town manager to introduce this topic to us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Can you hear me okay? Per the town's strategic plan goal to establish a policy of responsible future growth, the town council authorized a period to accept voluntary annexation petitions over this past spring. Petitions were accepted through May the 1st, at which point we had received 87 applications for voluntary annexation. And these were areas mostly, we sent notices out to folks in the area south of County Line Road, south of Reedy Fork, and between the boundary of Summerfield and Oak Ridge along Northwest School Road and Alcorn Road. A total of 87 applications were received. Per state statutes, the town clerk reviewed all of the applications for viability. 62 of those applications were deemed viable for annexation and are included in the ordinance that was drafted by Mr. Thomas and is on your agenda for this afternoon. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the process or location, should there be any.
And we all received maps of the areas. Are those also posted online? Yes. Okay, that's great. So the public can take a look at those areas on the town's website under meeting materials for this special called meeting. I'll now open a public hearing with a 20-minute period for public comments in support of approving this ordinance. I don't see anyone who is going to speak on this. So, hearing no one, I am going to close the period for public comments in support of the ordinance, and I'm going to open a 20-minute period for public comments in opposition to the ordinance. And I see no one here to do that either. So I'm going to close that period, which means that we don't need a rebuttal period on either side. And I will now close the public hearing, and that is the shortest public hearing on record. Thank you. Council, you've got all the materials on this proposed ordinance. Is there a motion on this matter?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt the petitions for voluntary annexation and approval of Ordinance 0-2021-12.
I'll second it.
The motion has been made and seconded. We'll now enter a period of discussion. Councilman McClellan.
First of all, I just want to say to all those the 62 applications that were approved for this round of annexation, welcome to Oak Ridge, and we're very pleased to have you. I do have one question, though, however. Now, of the folks that were not approved, are they still, or were they just flat out not eligible? Or was there something else there?
Several of the petitions were just ineligible due to either distance or inclusion in a subdivision in which we did not get an entire subdivision petition. There are several satellite areas that are eligible, but due to the time frame that was established to get this round in before the end of the fiscal year, we did not include the satellite applications within this particular round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know we had talked once earlier about, particularly up Northwest School Road, some folks, because of the closeness to Summerfield's boundaries. Is there any way that that can be rectified through an agreement with Summerfield?
The distance requirements can be Yes. With an annexation agreement with a neighboring jurisdiction, those distance requirements don't apply.
Okay,
But you'd have to have that agreement with the neighboring jurisdiction.
right. Is there any reason why we shouldn't proceed in the future to get that type of agreement?
That's at council's direction.
Okay, that's fine. That was it.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Kinnaman.
For the ones that are in the satellite, would we just wait until next year to consider them?
Well, I'd like to consult with Sandra and also with Michael about the time required to verify and to draft those ordinances and report back to council on what a reasonable time frame on that would be.
And as to the people that are asked us to annex them in, I very appreciative that they put trust and faith in us, that they want to join us and not, stay unincorporated, but they want to join us into a town and enjoy being part of Oak Ridge. Otherwise, Jessica, I'm sorry.
Pro Tem, all the petitions that were otherwise valid remain valid and remain petitions unless they're withdrawn. The de facto preference at this time is for contiguous areas. We certainly encourage citizens who want to come in, as was done in this case with a number of the new citizens. They worked the process and made sure that they had effectively had contiguity by the mass of them that they would touch. We had to work in at least one case and had a citizen come through with a connecting property to make sure a whole area could come in. But I think that's still the best approach and not have to resort to satellite annexation as such. We did it in one case with the fire department property. That would mean that all of the Oak Ridge Fire Department real estate, if you will, would be in the town. And I certainly supported doing that one at this time as a non-contiguous satellite annexation. But I certainly hope council will encourage citizens to keep their petitions in play and work on all the citizens between them and the next closest town boundary to come in.
Now, if we did allow someone to annex themselves in partially through the year, will they pay partial taxes, or they just will wait until next year?
My understanding, the taxes are prorated based
Okay.
on the number of.
Okay.
These will be a full year because they will.
These are a full year, but I'm saying is if we did anyone, if we addressed the satellites, say halfway through the year.
And I'll probably circulate a memo to council about my recommendation for this going forward from this point as to how we annex, how we receive petitions, when we act on them, what deadline we put on them. I think while it's not sacrosanct that you come in with the new fiscal year, it's certainly helpful to all concerned from a housekeeping standpoint. And that's what we've done heretofore. I think this is our 5th round of voluntary annexations. So I'll probably circulate a memo, and of course council will decide on what the actual policy is.
Okay, thanks, that's all I got.
Thank you. Councilman Nodine.
Yeah, you may have addressed this previously. What's the significance of this dotted red line?
Of the diagram?
The dotted.
Dotted red line is the relevant town of Oak Ridge boundary, the part that the area touches, and that's what makes it contiguous.
So this yellow area, that's now brought into the town of Oak Ridge, is that what you're saying?
Blue line.
Dotted red line is the town of Oak Ridge boundary currently.
Currently, okay, gotcha.
In several of those cases, it's the Reedy Fork, because that's the boundary on that side of Oak Ridge.
Okay.
And that's why it might go like this.
Okay.
It's following the streams again, but that's what it is in all cases. And in the area number 6, the town boundary is the western margin of the interstate, which is the town boundary there. And the statutes don't define street as being other than a roadway of some kind. Interstate's a road. And so we jump that go straight across on both corners and take in those properties that wanted to come in on the other side. But that's what that is, it's the town boundary nearest to that area.
But Doug, the blue line is the one that's being brought in. The yellow lines are just the parcel lines, the existing parcels.
Oh,
So the blue
Blue's what we're
area
bringing in.
is what we're bringing in.
Blue is the area coming in, and there are yellow lines. That's from the county GIS, which is where these maps are taken from with the
Right.
parcel numbers, so that you all see exactly where these parcels lie inside the areas that are coming in at this time.
Got you. One more question. When, you may have said this already. What are we required to bring, or what can we bring in, how often? In other words, annually or?
You can, actually, there is no limit on contiguous properties coming in at any time, 1 or 100 or whatever is in the pleasure of the council. And on voluntary petitions, it is the pleasure of the council.
So we can bring them anytime.
You don't have to accept.
What do you recommend that we look at?
Well, the recommendation on circulated memo is going to be that you leave the, instead of having an enrollment period, so to speak, just leave it open all year, but cut it off on April 1st every year for the next fiscal year. That gives us staff 90 days to do this. Now, one year you might get 1, and the next year you might get 50 or almost 90 this time, which is a lot.
Right.
But we're verifying ownership, and the time is to verify ownership, make sure the petitions qualify, and in terms of drafting, we have to do a meets and bounds description. And my approach has been to take line descriptions from deeds and from recorded plats, such as subdivision plats, and tie them together. The statute just says meets and bounds. I think mine's pretty accurate, but it doesn't say it has to be accurate, but you try to make it accurate. And we don't want to pay surveyors to do this, that would be astronomically costly. But it's not necessary, but we have to do that. So my time was working with Sandra to make sure the petitions were valid, and then and the ownership in each case was fully signed off on the petitions, all owners, and then do those meets and bounds as I just described.
But council could say, okay, we want these things every quarter or every
Sure.
year.
Yeah, you can do that.
I mean, we don't want these guys doing this all the time.
I think one thing I'd just interject, since you were talking about writing a memo, I just want to make sure, consult with staff, because we might want to leave even more time than April 1st.
Talk with Bill about that, whatever in his experience now he thinks is best for staff and for Sandra. But that's my idea, is that we have plenty of time. And then after that, they come in and you go on to the next.
Let me ask you a question.
Wait, hold on. Let's give everyone a chance to talk at least once. So we'll move to Councilwoman Pittman.
Well, most of what I was going to say, others have already said. Probably the biggest thing is welcome to Oak Ridge, to all of the residents or new residents on July 1st. I would like to encourage those who did not qualify this round to continue to work and figure out why they didn't, and work with their neighbors or work with staff to figure that out. I guess I'm feeling a little bit unsure about if there is any timeline projected on those non-contiguous that technically did qualify. We just did not include them at this time. Whether, you'll continue to work on those, or whether.
That would be council's direction, if it wanted to pursue an aggressive policy of taking in everyone who applies, contiguous or non-contiguous. But again, I think certainly there's some planning advantages to having contiguous areas come in from the town boundaries as opposed to having islands. And the petitions remain valid unless they're withdrawn, so we can either take them in under that statute, which is only limited by a percentage versus
10%
of town, or wait until they get intervening properties so that they become contiguous.
I guess a little bit of my concern is we did have quite a bit of discussion about the 10% so that we all understood the non-contiguous at 10%. And when we sent out the letters and when we did the, essentially publicized this annexation period, we did include that. We didn't restrict that. And so I want to make sure that that those that qualified that were not contiguous don't feel like they were just, not
Discarded. You don't want them to feel discarded.
I understand why. I understand why the group that we have is. I just want to make sure that, they don't just go by the wayside, because we did advertise that.
If we memoed back in the wake of today's sessions, here's what's remaining, number, general location, whatever, of non-contiguous parcels that petitioned. And basically, it's council's pleasure. If you said, go ahead and do what you need to and set this up, and they can come in whenever, and the tax department will prorate the taxes for those properties, which again, it's Oak Ridge taxes, so it's not a lot of money, it's just that it's either way, but it would be prorated. It's not coming in with
Sure.
a new fiscal year. But staff will take direction on that from you, from council. Again, I feel like there's some advantages to waiting for continuity, but if you feel like that's not the right message you want to send, direction from council will be followed.
I just want us to be consistent with the message that we sent out initially,
I think we should go ahead and,
and that can be later.
I mean, I'm like you. I kind of think we've sent the people, they've volunteered.
Speak into your microphone, please.
I think that, we have, we, in good faith, these folks requested annexation into our town. Yes, they're not contiguous, but I can't see any reason why we shouldn't go further and let's bring, in 90 days, and let's bring them in.
Thanks. We spoke this morning about this at staff meeting, and one of the things I thought I heard the town manager say was that they're going to look into how to handle those. And just remember, some of these people worked hard to sort of build up a contiguity, and perhaps we need to message that better, is what you're saying. But I don't think we said we wouldn't consider satellite annexations. And of course, we have considered one. So I think perhaps there might be 2 or 3 steps involved in this. Maybe at our meeting on Thursday, as part of your manager's report, you could just report on where we are and say, maybe we're still looking into the other ones that are eligible, and we're also still looking into the timeline for ongoing annexation requests.
Well, I think as the town manager said, he's going to not drop it, he's going to continue to look at it, so I think we should just wait until the town manager comes back to us before we make a decision on how to handle the satellites.
Right. And that's what he had said. And, yeah,
Technical thing I'd like to mention about non-contiguous properties. The statute has a wrinkle, and it says that petitions from non-contiguous parcels, properties, have to be accompanied by a meets and bounds description and a map. It's not true for contiguousness. Why did they do that? I have no idea. Second point, there's nothing in the statute that says we can't draft petitions for these people and they can sign. There's nothing that says we can't do that we can't effectively solicit their agreement to be voluntarily annexed. In one case here, that's effectively what happened, to make sure one of these areas could come in. It was voluntary, but we kind of did the lifting there. Now, we can do something like that to make it easier for people. But again, staff will take its direction from council and act accordingly. But there is that.
thank you. And the other thing I just want to clarify is that I think it's safe to say we were overwhelmed with the number of voluntary annexation petitions that we received. So one of the reasons that I understood that we weren't going into the kind of the harder cases of the non-contiguous properties was because staff could barely handle getting the contiguous ones done. And I think they've done a Herculean effort. And I just want to encourage staff in the future, you know, if we get another huge influx of these, even if we have a lot of time, staff just needs to tell us what they can do and what they can't do, because this is very labor intensive. And I want to thank all of staff and our attorney, who also did a huge heavy lifting on this.
One other question.
Hold on one second. Thank you for your heavy lifting on this. And I also wanted to point out what we learned this morning, that staff is also going to communicate with each one of these, the people who weren't eligible, the people who we haven't yet put on our agenda for today, and whoever we approve today. We'll all, go ahead.
On the petition, you said they could petition to come in, right? Now, what's the downside on that versus the other way?
More work for staff.
More work.
What I had to do with the fire department property, which is non-contiguous, I had to redo the petition and include a map and meets and bounds. And then the owner, which was Kyle, for the fire department, signed it again. So he ratified the earlier one. It was like an updated petition. It technically then met the statute. I'd have to do that for every one of the non-contiguous ones. Why? Because your legislature said so.
Yeah, okay, well, let's move on. I am overwhelmed by the interest our neighbors have shown, and I too welcome all of these new residents to Oak Ridge. And I'd also like to say for the record that this is really about being welcoming and about reaching out to people who like what we're doing here in Oak Ridge and want to be a part of it. It isn't about fattening up our tax revenues or our voter rolls. This is a costly and labor-intensive process, but we do it because we think we're doing a good thing here, and we're happy to have those around us, particularly some of the people who told us that they were worried about involuntary annexation by other towns. We're happy to welcome them into Oak Ridge, and we're glad they came to us. So, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's proceed to a vote. Oh, yes.
Fee associated with them applying for annexation?
Yes.
No? Can there be a fee? Or prohibited by statute?
No prohibition, but no town does that because they want the petitions. They don't want to put a roadblock in the way of people applying. So I've never heard, Doug, of anybody putting a fee on a petition to be annexed.
Yeah, we want to encourage people to come in. We don't want to slow them down.
Why? There are more tax bases, or?
I'm sorry, what's that?
What's your reason for
Well,
encouraging?
if we charged them a fee, some people wouldn't apply.
He's asking, why do we want more people in Oak Ridge?
To encourage more people to.
Grow, you live, you
To be honest, I've always taken the welcoming approach, that if somebody wants to be part of Oak Ridge, I'm more than happy to welcome them. Just as if somebody wants to move here and build a house, I think is, and like to what Madam Mayor said about, that we're welcoming people in because they want to become part of us and they don't want to become part of another municipality. And by becoming part of us, and to the point that, given our tax rate, this is going to have a minor change in our revenue. So it's not like we're trying to grow revenue. It's not like we're bringing in an industrial site that's worth millions and millions of dollars. It's going to have some effect on our revenue. On a $500,000 house, it's $400. So we're not getting much revenue. It also buffers us from other communities too. It makes it so that town can't come closer to us, so.
Thank you for saying that, because as a municipality, I think that's what's in it for us, is it further buffers our borders and our town core from encroachment. So, okay, if there's no further comment, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries, and the ordinance to extend the town's limits is approved. And we now move to adjournment. Is there a motion?
Motion, we adjourn?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries, and we are adjourned.